Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, good day to everyone. My name is June Marfori, and I am an executive coach, trainer, facilitator, senior consultant, and director of POWERinU Training and Coaching Philippines. And we welcome you to this complimentary webinar, Leading for Growth Using the N.E.W.S Compass. Let me just very quickly introduce the speakers. Tonight's speakers, myself included, are executive coaches, trainers, consultants, and directors of POWERinU. We are all certified facilitators of the award-winning N.E.W.S Compass framework and program. And we are excited to share with you what the N.E.W.S Compass is all about and how it can be a life-changing tool for you to grow, improve, and succeed in your life and at work. Founded in 2006 or 2006 in Lausanne, Switzerland, the company is active on 5 continents with offices in the UK and Panama City. Drawing on more than 25 years of international experience, the N.E.W.S Compass has been successfully adopted around the world since 2001. It is used through facilitation, coaching, and training, enhancing effectiveness and high performance in organizations. This evening, we will be using frameworks, methods, and tools from the widely recognized N.E.W.S Compass for leadership navigation. We will link navigation and leadership after an opening activity and then operate the N.E.W.S Compass for navigation. We will then walk through the 3 steps in navigation and attempt to do at least 2 out of the 3 steps. And finally, we will begin to create the North, which is the direction of greatness. What are some of our key outcomes? Through this program, we hope to achieve a few things. Number 1, enhance leadership skills in today's changing and uncertain times as you lead, engage, and impact your team and organization. A second outcome is actually preparing to achieve high engagement levels and optimal results with stakeholders, using some tools, preparing you for a higher level of focus, accountability, and engagement with your respective team members and stakeholders. Third, you actually start to create the North, the direction of greatness, which will lead into a practical vision and a picture of how success looks like. Now, in the next slide, here's a key question. Before we begin to go through this compass in some detail, allow us to hear from you. And please, feel free to type in the chat box. What does growth mean for you? Put that in either of 2 contexts, either in your role at work or in life. What do you do that leads or drives growth? I'm going to take a look very quickly at the chat box and see if anyone will be typing anything. All right. Growth, development. Thank you from Ed Hewitt. All right. Learning and evolving from Sab. Thank you. What else? What does growth mean for you? Or what is it that you do that leads to growth? Anyone else? I'm just now looking at the chat box. Okay. Improvement, becoming better. Yep. Being better. Growth, learning. Thank you, Ping. Thank you, John Beha. Thank you, John. Continuous learning. Thank you again, Ed. Thank you, Melanie. Anyone else? What does growth mean for you? Or perhaps what is it that you do that leads or drives growth? Maturity and continuous learning. Thank you, Lauren. So certainly, all of these things are, according to your perspective and view, are the meaning of growth and perhaps what you do at work that leads or drives to growth. Thank you very much, Roel. Improving learning. In the next slide, we will see that universally, we know that growth also means change. It can also mean going beyond your comfort zone. It can also mean transition, a transformation. And when you take a look at your descriptions in the chat box, they probably are all perfectly aligned. In fact, Camille says as well, growth is an uncomfortable situation wherein you expose yourself to unfamiliar things. Thank you very much, Camille. Probably captures exactly the same descriptions that you see on this slide because it's going beyond your comfort zone. It's a change, it's a transition, and it's a transformation. In the next slide, you will see an image of a boat that is clearly navigating through a sea that is not still. And the waves are creating what we call white water, suggesting turbulence in the seas. And that is what the sailboat is sailing through. You know, Passmore in 2015 said, our organizations face more complex continuous change than ever before. They recognize that change is a way of life, and expert navigation in the turbulent waters of change is in fact a strategic imperative. Managing change is a required skill for leaders, managers, and all employees. Yes, that's true. No one is exempt. It's not solely for leaders and managers, it's for everyone. In his book, Managing as a Performing Art, Peter Vail in 1991 first introduced an intriguing metaphor for the change, uncertainty, and turbulence that now characterizes organizational life. And what is that? It's permanent white water. So again, taking a look at the sailboat metaphor right there, perhaps in the real sense, when sailboats go through the sea, sometimes it's still. It's easy to navigate. Sometimes it's turbulent, and so there's white water. But, you know, Peter Vail says, permanent white water is what characterizes organizational disruption that we are constantly experiencing. And so as a manager, you may feel as if you are constantly churning in the rapids. A change-savvy manager requires competence, expertise, and a confident attitude to navigate change. The session uses a nautical theme to help you remember the concepts and also to add a bit of light-hearted fun. Let's take a look at the next slide. Navigation. What did it look like then or before, and what does it look like today? Well, let's define navigation. It's about creating and leading the next phase for yourself, your team, and your organization. You know, throughout history, humanity developed its navigation capabilities. The development went through many stages, from reading the stars, you know, what we call stellar navigation, to compasses, gyroscopes, and finally GPS systems, which we use today. But there was always the need to identify one's location in order to progress on set course and direction. So to the modern GPS frequent user, perhaps all of us or most of us today, it all might seem simple and obvious when the friendly voice in their car device directs them to unknown destinations with great ease. And yet, throughout history, many ships, caravans, and travelers lost their way due to poor navigation and the lack of technology. In the same manner, when we look at the next slide, we can say that organizations try to navigate in the sea of uncertainty that surrounds them. Navigating the team is a complex task. It requires defining where your team currently stands as well as where it is heading. All teams and organizations have navigators, be it a board of directors, senior management, or a general manager. It is interesting to note that organizations have board of directors that derive from the word direction. So, navigation is to do with creating the next phase or the next chapter amidst changing scenarios. And so here, one more time, perhaps a couple of minutes, please type it in the chat box. What are some of the factors or uncertainties that you're facing today? And I'd like to hear from some of you. Again, I'll pause here for about a minute. We'd like to hear from our audience. What uncertainties do you face today? Or perhaps what are some of the factors of uncertainties that are impacting you today organizationally or maybe at the personal level as you navigate through disruption and constant turbulence? Let's take a look. Not knowing what will really happen next. Spot on, Ed. Yep. Job security, especially as a freelancer. Most certainly, because unlike those who are with fixed jobs, freelancers are probably going with the trends and probably are impacted by, ups and downs. Yeah, what else? What kind of uncertainties do you actually experience? Anyone else? Let's take a look at the chat box. Perhaps introspect, reflect a little bit with respect to your personal circumstances. What are some of the uncertainties that you're observing if you're not actually experiencing it at the personal level? Anyone else? Perhaps Oh, oh my goodness, yes. How can we not mention AI? Is AI going to replace jobs and roles? That's the big question, isn't it? Or how much of AI is actually going to threaten us? How little of AI is actually going to be helpful as against adversely impacting us? Yeah, under unclear objectives, goals, and directions, Camille, having to learn new skills to navigate turbulence. Yeah, technology, yes, Lawrence, business performance and sustainability, even climate change. Yes, certainly requiring us with new technology, new skill sets, business performance and sustainability, even socio-political climate affecting business decisions, even of multinational companies. Last week, I was in a conference and people talk about what's the impact of the recently concluded national elections in the US. Certainly, we are living even in a global village. And so when you look at the next slide, and thank you for everyone for participating, you can see that we need constant navigation. The act of navigating an organization became a process which required constant engagement. No autopilots will do, certainly not in this environment. Hands-on navigation amidst many changes and constant ambiguity is the way to go. Every decision about policies, products, development, recruiting is an act of navigation that might influence the course of the organization. So to navigate well, one needs a compass, a GPS, or some other system that one can trust and be used easily by teams and organizations. Such a system needs to answer many complexities inside and outside the organization. An organization, definitely, when you take a look at the next slide, navigation rather is leadership. It takes leadership to navigate a team or an organization. It is actually the most fundamental aspect of leadership. There are four directions in the News Compass, which include a broad view and a holistic approach that is necessary to be able to navigate an organization in an ever-changing reality. With a constant increase in change, the next few years will be crucial for many people, teams, and organizations. The difference between success and failure will be determined by wise navigation. At this point, I'm just going to hand over to my colleague to now begin to talk in more detail about the News Compass. All right?
Thank you so much, June, and good evening, everyone. So my name is Thelma Meneses, and I'd like to. What you're seeing here is really the compass. Okay, every one of us knows what are north, south, west, and east. And so let me give you first before we move forward. Please listen and watch this video from the founder himself of the News Compass, Aviad Gos.
The News Compass offers individuals, teams, and organizations specific tools to navigate themselves through challenging situations and changing environments. In every decision point, and certainly at every significant crossroads, a person needs to stop and ask themselves the following four questions. North, where are you heading? What is your direction of greatness? Your vision, your strategy? East, why do you want to go there? Your values, drivers, and motivations. West, how are you going to get there? What are your plans for executing your strategy? South, why not? What are your limiting beliefs and perceived barriers, and how will you break through them? Life is not plain sailing. If you want to get to great places, you need to navigate your journey. News, navigating in times of change.
Thank you so much. And with this, let us get interactive. I don't want to be talking all the time. I'd like to get your views as well. And so we're going to post a Zoom poll, and I need you to answer this multiple choice. What's your top reason for getting stuck? And what do we mean by that? This tool that we are presenting is an effective way or a process of allowing a team, an individual, a team, or an organization get out of a stuck. Okay, so in your view, what you think are the most challenging events where you feel that you are really getting stuck? And you can just choose one. So reflect on it. So I'm using the SRWR: stop, reflect, respond, or write, and then respond. Okay. Can we end the poll now? So we said, or you said, that the challenges that we face, especially when we are stuck with something and we can't seem to move forward, it's number one, it's about the clarity of where we're going. Okay. And then you also talk about motivation. Why do we want to do this? So what's my motivational driver? Why do I have to embrace the organization or the team's goals or my own personal goals? And then, of course, we lack planning and execution and all that. So the system is four-directional and tries to look at the various aspects that are involved in navigating a team or an organization. The first step is always to assess where the organization is currently is. This is your current reality. What's your strength? Where are you? What's the market? And then after understanding your current reality, then the second step is to assess the trends that exist in the marketplace. And then, of course, once you know the first and the second step, then you can now use the compass with reference to the four directions. On the north, where do we go from here? The east, why do we want to go there? West, how shall we get there? And south, what might stop us on the way? And it seems like this is a very simplistic version of this compass. Yes, it is indeed simple. However, if you take a little deeper look at this process, then you will really appreciate the effectiveness and the power of the N.E.W.S compass. So let's take a look at the research of N.E.W.S on why organizations get stuck, which led to the development of the N.E.W.S compass. There you go. So first, in his research, Aviad realized that the first reason for getting stuck is, one, uncertainty regarding future direction. And you're right. You're very much aligned because that's also what you wrote. 35% of the participants mentioned that if we're not clear with our future direction, then we're stuck. We don't know where to go. And then the absence of inner motivation. That's number two in your poll. And then followed by inhibitions or lack of planning and execution, which is also equally important as the absence of your motivational drivers. And then, of course, your limiting beliefs, your fears and difficulties. Okay? So let me embellish that somewhere. In the North Compass, the North process takes into account the current situation and the trends that are taking place. It asks the question, where to? It tries to answer three main topics. What's the best future direction? It is a direction where we leverage on our core competencies, our strengths. Okay. We set a strategy. By looking at the North process, we create a strategy, a practical model that will allow the team or the organization to move forward. And then we also create a practical vision, a best case future along our desired chosen direction. So samples or examples of stuck situations in the North is when there are organizational changes. Will this be a weakness that will inhibit team performance? Of course. Of course. That's one thing, Ed. Okay. So one example is there are organizational changes, and change is the norm now in the new landscape. There's market change. I remember when I was in the pharma company, because of the infusion of generic brand, the entire market in the pharma industry changed. And so you have to identify now, where is the future? New leadership, especially for multinationals where CEOs and president are expats and they change, in 2 years, 3 years, okay? Or mergers and acquisitions. Major decisions that need to be driven by the entire organization or lack of visibility of the future. We're just so stuck with what we want to do and we don't have an articulation of the future. You need the North process, okay? Next, when we talk about the East addresses the question, why do we want to do this? And this is very interesting because a lot of strategic planning only talks about where do we want to go and how do we want to go there. Okay. Your vision and then your action plan. But seldom do we ask ourselves, why do we want to do this? Why do we want the people to embrace these strategic drivers? It is because we need to align the strategic drivers, our vision for the future, our North, with the people's motivational drivers. In other words, the team needs to embody and embrace the strategic drivers and align it with the right culture demanded by the business. And if you don't address that through employee engagement, or through aligning the vision of the organization or the strategy of the organization, then people are less engaged. Okay, and we all know if people are not engaged as much, they don't provide discretionary efforts. So some of the situations or examples where you need the East process is when there's burnout. There's so much competing priorities in the organization and people are tired. There's fatigue. People lost already. Why are they there? Loss of meaning. And I remember when I was in one company, I won't mention the company, my chairman was saying, Thelma, we're just maker of soap. Simple. And yet we forgot that and we continue to do a lot of things that are no longer as relevant as what is our core objective for the organization. So we have to bring the East part, the East process. Loss of motivation, it's because we're not aligned. We're not addressing the personal needs of the organization. Okay, so this is very, very important. The next direction is the West. The West process works out the question how. And I'm sure a lot of you know how to do the how. How are you going to get there? That's our expertise, and that's why you're there. How shall you get there? How shall we execute? We look at those two stages of the process. Unfortunately, we lack a lot of times, we lack planning and we spend less time in the execution. Or vice versa. We only do execution and we don't have time to plan. So there's need to be a balance, and the process in the West process allows us to have a balance of those on how to get there. Perfect planning and perfect execution. So when we are stuck in an organization where the team now tells us, oh, we don't have time, there's very little time for us to execute. We did not plan well, and therefore we can't mitigate all of those failures that we have. So performance is low due to lack of planning, or in some companies that I've seen, too much planning. 6 months presentation, 6 months planning, and then you have only 6 months to execute your plans. So it's kind of difficult, and therefore you need to have a very disciplined West process, and we can help you with that. Okay, and the last one is the South. The South process looks at the more hidden level of barriers to success, and this is again another unique value proposition of the News Compass. What might stop us from within and from without to reach our vision and execute our plans? It analyzes the difficulties or stoppers that might hinder us. And you know what? A lot of us, including myself, and times when we go into this victim mentality, that the things that do not come out as planned or as desired, um, is caused by some other else except myself. That's your victim mentality, and that's very disempowering. The South process allows us to pivot our limiting beliefs, our barriers to success into something that is empowering, okay, into something that is a can do, as opposed to, no, we can't do it. All right. So, stuck situations like resistance to change, because there's fear. Okay. So, why not? So, how can we drive the process of allowing people to pivot and amplify that empowering belief? So excuses and blaming others, as I mentioned, are we a victim or a player? A player is in control of oneself. A victim is, it's always a blaming game. Somebody made it. I'm late because there's traffic. I'm late because it's raining. So it's always something that is a reason why I can't do it. So the South process would help us a lot in all these things. All right. So with this, I'll end up by saying a team or an organization can use all of the compass, the directions, north, east, west, and south, or you can just choose to look at one direction if you think that in other directions you are already good at. Thank you so much. Now, I am passing on the presentation to my next colleague, Benji.
Thank you, Thelma, and good evening to everyone. Now that Thelma has given you an overview, a deeper understanding of the News Compass, my role will be to take you through the 3 steps of navigation. And to start off, we're going to have a quick self-assessment. So please grab your pen and paper. And for those who are tech-savvy, pull out your digital device, because we will be doing individual work here. In the next 4 slides, you will be seeing a couple of questions that I will ask you to answer. Now you're seeing the first one. Okay, thank you for going back to the previous slide. In the scale, you will be using a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being low and 5 being the highest, which represents the extent to which you are meeting the statement that are mentioned. So as you can see in the north, there are actually 3 statements. So each statement has a maximum rating of 5, and so you can actually total that. So you've given a head start. I will not go through and reading the different statements. I will just give you 1 minute, 60 seconds per slide to go through your exercise and get the total, and then we will move to the next slide until we finish the whole exercise. Okay. So each statement you can give a rating of 5, or a lowest being 1. Okay. I will not be asking you to share your responses. So this is really more a personal exercise. Okay, so when you're ready, let's start with this first slide. I will call out when we're down to the last 10 seconds. 10 seconds to go. Okay, let's move to the next slide, please. Same thing. Each statement, maximum of 5 points, lowest 1 point, and then just total your scores. Ten seconds to go. Okay, let's move to the next slide, please. Ten seconds to go. And we move to the last slide, which is the south. Last 10 seconds. And we're done with this exercise. As you can see, the 4 sets of questions that you responded, or statements where you responded, correspond to the 4 directions that Thelma just described a while ago. Going to the next slide now. Here we actually talk about the 3 steps in navigation. And the exercise that we went through is a simplified version of one of the tools that talks about the first step, which is about assessing where you are, assessing the current situation. And the second step to that would be assessing the changes in the environment. So if the first step is about more of an internal assessment that we're taking, the second step talks about the external dimension. And then the third one is about operating the N.E.W.S compass. Those who are familiar with or have done organization planning would be familiar with some of these steps, because there's a lot of similarity with what we normally do when we do strategic planning. All right, let's go to the next step. The next slide, please. So when we assess the situation, the current position, similar to what we did a while ago in the mini exercise, we take stock of where we are in relation to the different dimensions And there could be a number of different dimensions that we would be looking at. Going to the next slide, we could actually try to represent and maybe exercise our creative skills or talent to actually try to depict how we actually assess ourselves, where we are, by way of a human figure. It's been said, a picture paints 1,000 words. And although we will not be having the time to actually have you go through a drawing exercise or creative exercise, which we would normally do in a face-to-face or classroom scenario, today we will just ask you to do some reflection. You know? If you were to try to depict where you are right now using a human figure symbol similar to what's shown here in the slide, what are the different characteristics? What would be, let's say, the top characteristic that you would try to depict in that human figure? If there's anyone who would be willing to share that description, I would be very happy to mention that here. I'll give you a few seconds to actually think about that. So what human figure would symbolize you right now? Okay, we have a sharing from Roel, a young man that it reflects it comes old, as an old person. Okay, so we're not going to go into the deeper interpretation of what you mean by an old man, if that is how you actually describe yourself. In the picture that you see in the screen, there are many ways that one could interpret why this person is actually reflected as an old man. But what is really important here is the meaning that we attach to that particular interpretation. What does it mean to us? It's not so much as important what others would actually, how others would interpret that. It's really more up to us to use it to depict the meaning that we would like to express. Okay, so again, this is another tool that one could actually, or that we use actually in a workshop when we talk about applying the N.E.W.S compass. And it can actually be used as well for depicting the status of your team using a human figure. Okay. So according to Ed, people see old people as a relic of the past, even if that old man is more capable than the rest. Yeah. So that's why I said it's really about, in this particular exercise, it becomes what's really important here is for us to be able to express how we actually assess ourselves, not so much how others would interpret the human figure that we use to symbolize it. So let's move to the next slide. Again, going back to N.E.W.S, the founder of N.E.W.S Compass, he shares with us a definition of the great you, a great you. Earlier, you heard us, or some of us, talk about your direction of greatness as part of the language that the N.E.W.S Compass actually introduces. Here, he defines a great you as someone who will answer with excellence most of the major needs and of your most important stakeholders most of the time. Let me pause here and let you absorb this particular quote or definition coming from N.E.W.S. A great you will answer with excellence most of the major needs of your most important stakeholders most of the time. Okay. So as we try to make sense of this, going to the next slide, we talk about creating a stakeholders map. We will not be doing that exercise here, but I'll just describe what actually happens. First off, let's talk about what we mean by stakeholder. And you can see on the slide that here we refer to a stakeholder as individuals or entities that have a stake in our existence and success. And this can be family members, leaders, peers, direct reports, and so on and so forth that you can see on the slide. Personally, from a personal journey standpoint, I have not really looked at I have not really used the term stakeholders as far as personal from a personal relationship standpoint. Although, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, when you talk about stakeholders from an organizational or a business standpoint. But interestingly enough, yeah, it does apply when you talk about stakeholders using Aviad-Goss's definition. And you can further make some further distinctions when you talk about family, for example. For those that have children, you may want to make the distinction between your spouse as a stakeholder versus your children. So and so on and so forth. So it really depends on how you actually want to categorize the different individuals or groups of individuals that you have a relationship, approaching this from a personal journey standpoint. So in creating a stakeholder map, we go to the next slide, keeping that definition in mind. So you are asked to answer the question, who then are your main stakeholders? Who then are your key stakeholders? From a personal standpoint, who would they be? Maybe you can think about your top 3 individuals or groups of individuals as your key stakeholders. And after identifying that, you would then want to find out or state what are the main needs of these key stakeholders. Am I clear about what their main needs are? Have I even tried to understand or investigate what those are? Or have I just made some assumptions? Okay. And the third one to answer would be, which needs do you believe are the most acute or critical to address personally? So again, you look at identifying your top stakeholders. Within those top stakeholders, identify the 3 needs for each. And among those, which are the most critical needs that you believe you would need to address, perhaps at this point in time? So that's the whole process of creating a stakeholder map. As I said, we're not gonna have time to actually go through that here, but you can actually go through that or think through that on your own after this webinar. And moving to the next slide, after taking those 2 exercises, we go to the second step now, which is assessing the changes in the environment. Again, from a personal perspective, we could also look at the typical SWOT analysis, SWOT type of analysis, strengths, our weaknesses, but more importantly, the opportunities and strengths and threats. So as we look at the different domains of our life, this is I'm approaching it from a personal standpoint. What are the different changes that you are seeing right now or that you anticipate are going to be happening in the different domains of your life? And from all of these changes, what do you see as the opportunities and strengths? And that is where you would actually focus on, because those are the ones that you would look for, where you would look for what is most impactful that you would need to consider at this point in time. And again, we will not go through that exercise. I'm just taking you through the process. So after you've done that, you'd go then to the next step, where you will actually be ready to go and operate the N.E.W.S compass, okay, using the explanation that you heard a while ago from Thelma. All right. So that in a brief way is are the 3 steps of navigation that we go through, that we can go through using the News Compass process. Okay, to take us through the next step of the process, I'd like to turn the floor to Elaine.
Thank you, Benji. So as of this time, what we have done is bring you to, or have brought you to, navigation as leadership. It's a critical leadership skill or competency. And that was June who ran or walked you through that. And then with Delma, she was able to walk you through the News Compass as a framework, as a tool for navigation. And then Benji took you through the 3 steps in navigation. And now we will zoom in to the north. We won't have time to go through all the directions, but at least we will have some time to go through some steps of the north. Okay? Now, just to refresh you, the north deals with a common direction, strategy, and vision. This is where we answer the question, where do we want to go? And then with functional teams or working and successful teams, we'd like to see how do they move to the north when there is disruption or when there is some changes that happen where people go to different directions. That is where a problem, a gap exists. And so we need to make sure that we do the right thing so that we can redirect them to the north. And that can happen in both personal level, team level, and organization level. So as I was saying, when the joint direction for the future is clear to everyone in the team, or it's clear to yourself as an individual, then you are heading towards your direction of greatness, be it at the personal, at the team, or organization level. That is why we've been calling it the direction of greatness. Okay? That goal is to be in that 100% ideal. And creating the north puts you to that direction, gives you the focus, gives you the alignment, and gives you that execution capacity. On the other hand, if there is disruption, then some people, as you notice in this arrow, that some people were moving or are moving towards another direction, or different directions. But overall, people are still moving towards the same direction. That arrow, you can still see, are heading towards the same direction. And it's, this is a typical person. This is a typical team or a typical organization. What do I mean by typical? There are days that we are organized. There are days we are in chaos. There are days we are disrupted. There are days that we are smoothly progressing. So this is what we would call typical. But the organization or the team or you as a person are moving slower because there's less focus. There is disruption. So results might not be as desired. And the third image that you see here is really the chaotic one, So this is when you cannot even discern the shape of the arrow because individuals have different goals if this is a team or organization. And then if this is a person, that person doesn't really know where he or she is heading. And so this happens when we don't know our goals, when we don't know how to achieve those goals, when we don't follow up on our results, and we don't have the accountability for execution. And so we'd like to bring you to 3 steps in the north. And what are these 3 steps? Number 1, define the direction of your greatness and the next phase. Number 2, define the strategic drivers. What are these things that you will do to move you towards your direction of greatness, towards achievement of your north? And number 3, create together your practical vision. So before we go into these 3 steps, I'd like to just refresh or redefine, these terms that we've been using. Direction of greatness is the unique area that you want to focus on as a leader or as a person and make progress in. Next phase is the next chapter of your development as a person or as a leader, depending on the context where you will use this. Strategic drivers are the main areas of focus and initiatives that will drive you to the next phase. And practical vision is the image of that desired future reality. Now, there is an image here, and in fact, Trina will show you later or will put on the chat box later on for you to download this template where you can actually write your phase, current, and your next phase, and the strategic drivers so that you get reminded as to what are these strategies that will lead you to the direction of greatness towards the north. Okay, so that is a template that we would like you to take home as a homework. Of course, we can also do some minutes here. We'll spend about a couple of minutes for you to get started with that thinking. So first step in the north, define the direction of greatness and the next phase. Have you heard of the survival or mediocrity model? No, so this is based on the greatness model from the book Good to Great by Jim Collins. If you are, then you probably have heard of these 3 questions. These 3 questions are what you see here. What do we have to do to survive as leaders? What do we not mind doing? And what are we not too bad at? What do you notice with these 3 questions? Anyone? So as the name or title suggests, it's a survival model. These questions are very much about just surviving, just complying. And so with this mindset, if this is the mindset that a person, a team, or an organization has, there is very low motivation model. There is very low result achieved. Key talents can leave the organization. And so this is what we call an outside-in model. The uniqueness and strengths of the person, of a team, or an organization are not really coming out, because they are just surviving. They're just doing, complying, what they're supposed to do. Just doing it for the sake of doing it. Now, there is another model called the greatness model. And in this is also by Jim Collins, again, the author of Good to Great. In this model, people and organizations choose their direction by asking 3 important questions. And as you can see here, what are we passionate about as leaders, as individuals? That's the first question. Second, what are our core competencies and capabilities? And third, how can we meet the needs of our market in a practical manner, or how can we meet the needs of the world in a practical manner by having our passion and our core competencies? And so this model is constructed from inside out. Our uniqueness, our greatness as individuals and as teams are getting out, are brought out, we're bringing them out. These teams follow their uniqueness and make a substantial contribution to the world, or in the context of your team, to your team or the organization. Or if you're talking about individuals, perhaps your family, or your your little circle, whatever that might be. So teams or individuals must find the answers to this. And when you can find that, that intersection of number 1 and 2 and 3, then you have your greatness. You're able to define your direction of greatness. And so, Trina, if I can just ask for your help to put on the chat box a template where we'd like you to actually define your 3 main passions as a leader, as an individual, and define your 3 main core competencies and capabilities as a leader. In the interest of time, what we will do is give you a couple of minutes. So of course, if you're fast and you know yourself very well, then you can probably define all the 3. Otherwise, we can do that as a homework. It would be interesting if, if there's any volunteer to write what they have written as their passion and their core competencies. That would really be very good and very much appreciated if you'd like to share on the chat box. Now, let me show you some of the examples as well that we have. These are examples that we have in the workshop that have been written by some of the participants, and with their consent, we are showing them as examples. So examples of passions: creating new solutions, passion for excellence, passion for quality, core competencies. Some of them have told us their core competencies are about adaptability, focus on results, agility, effectiveness across cultures. Now, there have been questions in the past: do my passions and core competencies have to be the same? Not necessarily. But as we have said, at some point, once you find that intersection of your passion and core competencies, that is where the uniqueness and your direction of greatness lies. So I hope you have downloaded the template. Let us know. POWERinU Philippines, that is Trina, our excellent support from POWERinU Philippines, is there if you have a problem downloading the template. The next part of the process, after you have identified your passions and your core competencies, is to look at what is a trend like. What, more or less, what is it showing to me? What direction am I taking? And that is what we call my direction of greatness. Now, you don't need to have a very specific title or name to it or statement or phrase to it at the moment. But if you want to put a title to it, a phrase to it, that would also be good. For example, what we have put here are examples. What you can see here at the first line: provide greater opportunities for people to develop inside the organization. One of the participants whose main role is this and who's been doing this, looked at this and said, this is the direction of her greatness. And then another participant has said, develop the market by offering premium solutions is a direction of greatness, for this person, a marketer. And so if you want to put a title or a phrase or a statement to your direction of greatness, that is the next part or the next step of that process. It is not mandatory, but it is something that can help you. Now, we'd like to also define what is the next phase, because you are moving from where you are today to where you are heading. To move to where you are heading, we'd like to identify what is that next phase. The question then is, where are you coming from? Where are you today? Okay, so to be able to move forward, we have to know our starting point. Our starting point is what we call my last phase, or some may say my current phase. Okay, so my last phase or current phase as a person, as a leader, as a business owner, as a freelancer. I think earlier somebody said she or he is a freelancer. So answer this question or fill in the blanks. As a person, leader, business owner, CEO, freelancer, what has been my last or current phase in this last, say, 12 months? And to answer that, be very clear. Be very clear. What did I actually focus on doing? Give it a name. Okay. So what did I actually focus on doing? This slide will show you some examples. These are some of the examples. So I might say I've been developing people. If I am a manager, I might say I've been developing people. If I am a person who has been supporting the infrastructure, perhaps in the back office operations, in the IT, in the HR, I'm developing systems and process infrastructure. Or I'm performing heavy operational work. That's also a possible answer. Whatever it is, or if I am into media, then describe what that is. So give it a name. Can I just, because I cannot see you, can I just get some reaction emoticons that you are following the steps of the North? Perhaps a thumbs up. Okay, so I see one. Thank you, Ping, Melanie, Sab, Kyle, Mayi. Okay. All right, Maria, Angelica. So thank you, thank you. And for the others, and John, I can see, yeah. So, yeah, thank you. Now, with that name that you have given, with that last phase or current phase, look at it and answer this question. Does it need a change? And what level of change does it need now? Does it need a major change, a mid-level change, a small change, or no change at all? So whatever you have defined as what you're actually doing now, which is your current phase, what level of change do you need to apply? So you might say, let's say you put mid-level change, whatever it is, okay? Because this is very contextual. This is very much about yourself or your team or your business. So there's no right or wrong answer here. The next question then is, where do you want to go? Which is the next phase. So considering your last phase and the level of change you need to apply, what should be your next phase? So give it a name as well. Again, you can see some examples of names that we have put here coming from some of the participants of this workshop. New digital capability, transformation of the team in unity, going for the first position, leveraging global connections. These are some of the examples. Okay, so from your last phase to your next phase, the next step is defining now your strategies. How do you move from your current or last phase to the next phase? And these are what we call your strategic drivers. You are moving from the last to the next. Now, to do this, let me suggest another model called the 6S model. What is this? 6S model, obviously, it stands for 6 words that start with an S. So what should you start doing? Start it. What should you do more of? Speed up. What should you do less of? Slow down. What should you be carrying on? Do it the same. Or perhaps what should you be carrying on but differently? So same but different. And lastly, what should you stop doing? And so we urge you to create your strategic drivers using this 6S model. Perhaps you can look at 3 to 5 top strategic drivers which actions should you stop, should you start, should you do the same, should you speed up, should you slow down? These are the things that will be critical for you to move from your current or last to the next. Now, let me give you an example. And this is where you can use that template that Trina has put on the chat. So there were 2 things that she has put. One is your 3 passions and core competencies, and another is this template. So this is your take home. This is your homework for you to do to complete the North. So an example would be this. If this is an organization that we're talking about, the next phase is let's transform in unity. This was identified as the next phase. And so 3 strategic drivers were identified. As what you see here, driving the team center of excellence, expanding channels, and driving presence in different industries. Now, let me also share a personal example. This is me, Elaine. My next phase is joyfully empowered and empowering others at every phase of life. And my 3, not just 3, 5 strategic drivers: having a steady and sufficient income stream, consistently personal health condition, great personal health condition, meaningful connections within family and friends, and also spiritually, continuous empowerment of others through POWERinU, where I'm one of the directors, and active participation in advocacies and volunteer communities. These are my strategic drivers so that I can empower others at every phase of life. And so this is me. And, I encourage you to make your own personal North template. So what are your past or current phase? What is your next? And how will you move there? And the last step, given we only have last 15 minutes left for this, we'd like to give you Q&A as well, is creating your practical vision. The key question to answer here is, what will success look like? Practical vision is a picture of a desirable future reality. It acts as a lighthouse to direct our efforts and progression as a leader. So our vision is very powerful. It is our lighthouse. It gives us hope and energy to achieve it. And the greater the imagination and immersion in the vision, the more energy and positive that chemistry that you will enjoy. And so I, again, would like you to do as a homework, answer this question: what will success look like? And be as tangible as possible. Imagine it, something that you can see, hear, taste, smell, be and feel and touch. And imagine that you will report that in a next conference, in a next team meeting, or in a next gathering with families, with stakeholders. And that's about it from my end, and I'd like to turn it over now to June.
All right. Thank you, Elaine. And of course, it is our hope that all of us have managed to appreciate, albeit briefly, what we have managed to present to all of you this evening. What we've really done is we walked you in very swiftly, I should say, summary of the News Compass or navigation. Again, without belaboring the point, just looking at the slide that is presently on the screen, we would like to refresh that the North really depicts the where, the East is the why, the South is the why not, and finally, the West is the how. So you can see some of those prompt questions that we hope that you have a better appreciation of as you seek to look at personal, team, as well as organizational navigation. When you look at the next slide, you will see that this News Compass tool or navigation tool assures you and your leadership and entire organization with a process that is systematic. It paves the way for creating a way forward together and the assurance of all plans being implemented. So certainly promising very much opportunity for the organization to move forward. When you look at the next slide, this is something that perhaps we can devote maybe just a minute or two, or maybe not much more than that. What we'd like to hear from you, maybe on the chat box very quickly, is what is your personal takeaway? It would be nice to see maybe 2 or 3 of you type out something in terms of after this, kind of an hour or 15-minute presentation. What is your personal takeaway? And perhaps more concretely and in granular detail, what would be your first practical steps in the coming week? And I'm just gonna pull up my chat box in the hope that I can see some people really maybe engage and type out some very concrete steps that you will take in the coming week, or perhaps what is the one that resonated the most with you and you are taking away from this 1 hour and maybe 15 minutes that we have briefly walked you through the News Compass navigation tool. Anyone? What would be your perhaps most important takeaway that you would bring forward and maybe immediately apply, maybe in this coming week or in the next couple of days, or who knows, maybe tonight or tomorrow? Anyone, any brave souls? Thank you very much. The news process requires introspection to assess the current state, assess the current external factors, and then take action given the information at hand. Certainly, John Alexander, thank you for that. There's a lot to take in. There's a lot of analysis. There's a lot of introspection and looking at the current state, and be able to take action based on both internal and external factors. Ping, thank you. Use the news framework when I developed the 2025 business plan for the team. Thank you. That's very rewarding for us to hear. Setting direction for myself and in my organization, also identifying my purpose and limitations. Finally, planning my next steps. Thank you, Sab and Ed. Personal takeaway, remove this cobweb on my chest. The news process showed me the way. Those are just a few that we have time to look at. So thank you very much. Thank you. This slide here shows you kind of the summary. When you look at what it might look like, a session 1 is the introduction, talking about navigation leadership, and of course, dwelling on the News Compass, the assessment of the current situation, and what are the opportunities moving forward. Session 2, as we did talk about and hear tonight, is the North. What's your direction of greatness? And what's your next phase? Envisioning what the best case scenario might look like. In phase 3, when you look at the East, you want to discover your common importance. You want to look after better engagement and closing the gap between what you are, the being, as well as what you are willing to do and can do, or the connecting the being and the doing. Session 4 is the South. What's stopping you? What's standing in the way? You need to make a choice and be able to break through the limits. And session 5, the West, is identifying your critical goals and who are your champions who will carry them forward, because this is the how. And of course, as you conclude, you want to share the compass and agree on the next steps. And you can see now in our should we say, at the bar at the bottom, you will see that as you progress, you move closer and closer to being able to complete the entire process and adopting the solution as truly value adding. In the next slide, you will see that the process is for senior leadership to navigate the entire organization together through the next phase of the direction that you're seeing for yourselves. And then, of course, looking at strategy and focus. It is fast, it is deep, it is strategic. Now, if done annually, there will be alignment, commitment, engagement, and renewed motivation. This structured process will solve internal and external challenges, encourage discussions, improve communications through a common language, and drive organizational results and accountability. Certainly, team development and business results will be the benefit. Very quick three-step process. When you look at that, the preparation is a better understanding of the organization, methodical interviews, as well as online assessments, really prepping for the facilitation, which is 16 hours of strategic workshop, employing online tools to collect results and jointly created outcomes. In the implementation, you need to have champions, people who will bring it forward. You will implement planning meetings for quarterly checkpoints as post-assessments as well to ensure that you're constantly evaluating, assessing where you are versus where you said you want to be and where you're driving implementation towards. In the next slide, you will see that aside from organizational navigation, of which we spoke lengthily about tonight, there is also team navigation. It's one of the tools under the N.E.W.S Compass navigational tools arsenal. This is aimed at creating together the next phase for the team movement and development, and for strategic team building, and for teams to align with the entire organization. It's also a 16-hour process and applying the same N.E.W.S Compass. Now, please do let us know if this is alternatively or also an area of high interest and prospective help for your teams apart from organizational navigation. In the next slide, you will see we have 4 tracks under the N.E.W.S Compass solutions. Of course, we did talk about organizational development processes, but you will look that there is also developing leaders, which includes coaching solutions and coaching certification. When you look at the leadership development track, that covers a variety of leadership roles and levels in their leadership journey. And finally, the culture and leadership transformation methodology is also based on the 4 new solutions. And any of these new solutions are at your disposal if this is an area of interest for you through POWERinU Training and Coaching Philippines. We'd like to stop now in the last 5 minutes because we, believe it or not, we also have some raffle prizes for you, but we'd like to stop for maybe a couple of minutes. Any questions that you might have, we'd like to pause now, and perhaps I invite my other colleagues and directors and consultants, Elaine, Benji, and Thelma, to also make themselves available.
June, there's already a question actually. I
Okay.
see here.
All
Yeah,
right.
John Alex.
Okay.
Lim. Can I read it?
Sure, please, go ahead.
How does the N.E.W.S process continue to work when the south part is riddled with barriers that appear to be insurmountable? And then there was an example. You want to scale business, but the current state of economy is such that costs are very high, competition very stiff, and market share has shrunk significantly. Do you want to answer, partners? Anyone who wants to answer this? And then there's another question actually from John as well.
I can answer just a little bit on John's question because the economy has always been a problem in the Philippines, especially in the Philippines where you really cannot anticipate what the economy would look like year on year. And then costs are very high, competition, everything, every year, every organization is faced with this dilemma. And this is not new. Market share shrunk. But I think, as I've mentioned earlier about the limiting beliefs, these are the things that that disable us to move forward because we say we can't do it because of the many reasons and all that. Now, to pivot to an empowering belief, look at the state of the economy, the costs that are very high, and start looking at, maybe innovation. What are the products that you can launch based on the innovation? Competition very stiff. Maybe you can start looking at, yes, competition is stiff, but how can we create a more distinguished value proposition? So look at these problems as an opportunity for you, and then focus on what are your strengths are and how can you differentiate yourselves from those. Sometimes budget is always, because of the cost, it's always a limiting barrier to success. But if you start looking at the rigors of the numbers and then you start empowering yourself and you say, I can do it, I can think of something, and that would be your innovation, that can be resilience, that can be grit, that can be your agility and all that. As a team, you will be able to generate leapfrog ideas, game-changing ideas in order for you to succeed and emerge stronger.
Thank you. Thank you, Telma. And June, Telma, if I may just add, you know what I mentioned earlier as the inside out model, finding your uniqueness and your significant contribution so that you can bring out that is your direction of greatness. So if you can find that, what are your passions, what are your core competencies, and then of course do the other steps in the navigation, such as identifying your key stakeholders, what are the most important needs of your stakeholders, that you should fulfill, given your core competencies, given your passions, inside out approach, towards your direction of greatness. And these are things that you can control yourself and you can develop. And so hopefully that can help you.
And then there are two participants here, Alma and Lauren, who I see. And you've done this, the todo one and todo two. So you know what it takes to pivot from limiting beliefs to empowering beliefs.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Thelma and Elaine. Of course, Elaine, just shortly before she handed back to me, did talk about the main strategic drivers as well. And that's an opportunity to take a look at, after a thorough assessment, to take a look at what you should start, what you should speed up, slow down, same but different, as well as stop. So we hope that that's been of help. Apologize, John Alexander, and thank you so much, Ed, for weighing in significantly with those comments. We are kind of pressed for time, but we do want to make sure that I believe that we have some communication and connection links through email. And if you feel that not all of your questions have been answered, feel free to send us an email as well. We do have to just move to the next slide, because we don't want to part ways tonight without letting you know that we actually are raffling off some offers and prizes. And if you look at the next slide, we are actually raffling off an ebook, a Kindle version, which is Navigating in Times of Change by no less than N.E.W.S. We are also raffling off 3 1-hour sessions, complimentary 1-hour executive coaching sessions, and from 3 independent or separate individuals from POWERinU, the directors and executive coaches. And so one that is worth at least 15 to 20,000 pesos when you look at the level of pricing for mid-level up to C-suite level managers. So in addition to the Navigating in Times of Change Kindle version, we're actually raffling off. The first winner that will be drawn will get the ebook, and then probably in succession the 1-hour executive coaching sessions. Okay, there you go. And of course, the winner has to be here.
Yes, that's a condition.
That's the condition. Okay, bear with us. I know it's 8:02, but okay. So Angelica Mercader, congratulations. If she is here, maybe she can give us an emoticon. She is the winner of the ebook, Navigating in Times of Change. All right. I'm not sure if she's here. And then the second to the 4th winners will get the executive coaching sessions. You will be informed of your coach. And the first winner is, oh, John
John,
Alexander
oh,
Lim.
wow. Okay.
Congratulations. Okay,
I
yeah.
know he's there because he asked the question.
All right. And the next winner of the executive coaching session is or will be, is this, we can't see.
Bea.
Bea
Yeah, I saw
Simpao.
her
Simpao.
before.
All right. Congratulations,
Bea
Bea.
Simao.
And then last but not the least, our final winner will be, I can't read that. Oh, it's Sab Marfori. Congratulations.
Congratulations to
Okay,
everyone.
so maybe we'll just show our last two slides and we have a special offer. If you sign up for 3 one-hour coaching sessions, you get 1 coaching hour session for free. And if you sign up to any of our POWERinU solutions, either training, coaching, and consulting, you will get a 10% discount on the contract price, plus get a 1-hour free coaching session worth at least 10,000. And for any paid leadership or HR-centric training program, we are offering a free 2-hour team virtual coaching session by POWERinU Director and Coach Thelma Meneses based on the shared leadership principles. We only need 10 seconds of your time. In the next slide, you will see the QR code. Please scan it. Let us know what you found as positive and long-lasting and in the impressive for our webinar tonight, and we will truly appreciate that. And thank you for joining us tonight. We will not release a recording because this is an exclusive learning session for those who attended. Thank you so much. Subscribe to powerinU.com.ph and receive updates on free webinars. Thank you for joining us for our last webinar for this year. We truly, truly appreciate your presence tonight. In behalf of all of the directors, thank you. Good day, good night, good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you and congratulations to our winners as well.